So next, let's talk about understanding how to draw a circle that's going back in space. So if you're taking a bowl and you want to show that it's receding in space, what you're going to be drawing instead of a circle is actually an ellipse. And ellipses can be really tough. They're everywhere though. They're going to be in any still life object that you draw pretty much. If you wanted to draw a camera, if you wanted to draw a bicycle or a car, you're going to have ellipses in the wheels of the tires. So it's a really important skill to be able to do, even if you don't have a full understanding of perspective. I'll go into this in another video in much further detail about how to do technical perspective with an ellipse. But for now, let me just give you a couple of quick tips that will help you out. Okay, so next I want to show you a couple of different techniques that you can use to make your ellipses look better. The first one, and you'll see this in with more explanation in my quick tips for symmetry video, but the first thing you could do is you could give yourself a horizontal line so that you know what's truly horizontal. Otherwise, when I draw an ellipse freehand, typically mine is going to be a little bit slanted, and you can see that the widest parts here are actually not horizontal. So if I give myself this horizontal guide at the very beginning, then I can kind of try to orient my freehand ellipse around that horizontal axis. So let me do that first. So you're going to see it's not going to turn out right from the very beginning. So that's the other thing, is that you want to think of it like you're building on something. So I'm just going to try an ellipse freehand first, and then I'm going to make changes to it. The next thing is that if you understand how perspective works, the way that an ellipse looks as it's moving back in space, or the way that a circle looks as it's moving back in depth, is that the curve in the front is actually deeper than the curve in the back. So typically I'm going to turn my page and I'm going to try to draw that front curve from the side. And then I'm going to turn my page and try to draw the back curve from the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make that front curve a little bit deeper. So I'm speaking specifically about from the middle line, this horizontal line, to the front here. I want this depth or height on the page to be larger than from the middle to the back. Another technique is that I usually wind up getting these little dents and lumps and bumps. I want to think of it like I'm going to puff up the dents, so you can see that I had a dent here, and then I puffed it up so that I made it more of a smooth curve, and then I can erase that dent. I had another one here. And if I have a lump, which I don't really see here, but maybe down on this one, you can kind of see that I have a lump. I think of it like I'm just going to shave that off. So I don't start over. Instead, I just puff up, or I shave off the parts that don't kind of fit in a nice smooth curve. The next thing is that I always tell my students, when you're drawing ellipses, you don't want to be drawing marshmallows, and you don't want to be drawing lemons. So a lemon typically is going to look like this. It's going to have these pointed curves at the side, and that's not really how an ellipse looks. If you look at a circle that's moving back in space, it never actually comes to a point on the side. Instead, it's always going to be a slight curve on the side. So I'm going to fix this one up a little bit here, so that you can start to see what a proper ellipse looks like. I'm going to shave off this little part. And now you can see it's a little bit deeper if I were to draw a line through the middle. This part of the curve right here is a little bit longer than this part of the curve because it's in the front. The sides don't come to any points, so it's not a lemon. The other thing, so here's my lemon. You also don't want to draw marshmallows. Sometimes I see people draw ellipses that look like this, and they kind of just wind up looking like a rounded edged square or rectangle. And really, your ellipse is going to kind of squeeze out into these corners. And if I want to set up a nice horizontal axis, I can take my ruler, draw a line here. I kind of bumped my ruler a little bit. Let's try that again. And then I can squeeze out the other corner, and keep in mind it's never going to come to a point like a lemon. And then I can erase my mistakes. So you'll notice that I'm always making my correction first, and then I'm erasing the first line or my helper line. A lot of times people think of those as mistakes, but they helped me to figure out what I needed to do. And then I almost always wind up turning my page so that I can draw these curves a little bit easier. This is just because my arm, thankfully, is attached to my body. And so my hand is going to arc in this way, which means that this curve is a little bit easier for me than this curve is. You can see that on the page. This curve is going to be a little bit easier for me to draw than that curve is. You can see how this one was wiggly. And it's just because my arm runs into my body when I'm drawing on my right side because I'm right-handed, whereas on my left side I have a little bit more free range of motion. So here I'm turning my page sideways. Sometimes I turn my page upside down as well, but for whatever reason today sideways is feeling a little bit more comfortable, so I'm just going to go with that. And remember, I want my back end of my curve to be a little bit narrower than my front end of my curve, so I'm going to trim that down too, and then erase that helper line that showed me that it was a little bit too large. And there I'm starting to have a good looking curve. And what I do in the end is that I'm going to erase all of the thickness of my line until I really have one narrow skinny line, and I can really tell exactly where I want that line to be so that I don't have a lot of additional lines that are giving me too much information to try to weed out. Visually it's confusing, so I want it to be a little bit thinner. So I hope all of those different techniques, the vertical and the horizontal axis, no lemons, no marshmallows, and that it's thicker in the front and thinner in the back, and also shaving off bumps and puffing up dents. I hope all of those tips really help you out so that you can get much better looking ellipses, and just don't worry about trying to get them freehand. You're not going to get them perfect from the very start. Just make one, make changes to it, and then you're on your way. Thank you all so much for watching. More videos are coming soon, so if you wish to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and do that. And also you can check out my website, LZMstudio.com.